Hello folks. Hope things are going well. Turn it down a little bit. There we go. Much better. How's everybody doing? It is earlier than advertised. I will say that. I have to apologise for that. A few things have cropped up this afternoon, family-wise. Nothing major, just stuff I need to be there for an hour or two. So I thought instead of cancelling the rewrite of the Thousand Sons, I'd come on for an hour and do it now. Because, you know, I loathe missing these things. And here we are. Hi Carl, how's it going, man? Hikari, cheers for your input, man. I did read those before we started. Thank you. Togna, how's it going, dude? Matthias, welcome back. Big Jay-Z, how's it going, man? Mr. Awesome. Yes, we are indeed doing your favourite faction today. Big Jay-Z. We are finally doing the Thousand Sons. Yeah, you have to forgive me for this short stream. Mainly this is because, again, family things this afternoon that I've got to be at, I've got to be doing. So, unfortunately, that just is what it is. But I didn't want to miss it. I didn't want to miss doing this. Because we didn't do it last week because I wanted to do some painting on the stream, which was cool. But this week we are indeed doing Thousand Sons. Getting them sorted. Justice for the Thousand Sons. I agree. Alright. Let's jump straight in, because I've only got an hour, so I don't want to be prattling about for a little while. Let's jump straight in. So, can anybody remember... Again, this is like teaching. It's weird. Can anybody remember what we did with Magnus? Is he alive? What did we do with him in the Exile verse? What did we do with him? Let me know. Because I cannot remember. What did we do with Magnus? I swear he's dead. Unfortunately. What did we do with him? Magnus got murdered by Leman. Right, okay, alright. Okay, so yes. I think what we did was we had the Space Wolves getting wolferized by the Thousand Sons. I seem to remember that, right? At the Siege of Prospero. Yeah. He died and didn't become a demon princess. Right, okay, cool. So he's dead. Okay, alright, cool. Well, if that's the case, we're building towards the death of Magnus at Prospero. Alright? Now, one thing I want to do is take Magnus away from being pitiful. Like, I don't want Magnus to be moping around. I don't want Magnus to be, I deserve this. Oh, you know, and that's what gets his sons killed. You know, people in 40k should be having flaws that are understandable, relatable, right, and that kind of lead to their own tragic downfall when it does happen, because that's human nature, right? That's what we do with Magnus. So, let's go and talk about why Magnus is on Prospero. Why was he sent to Prospero? Another reminder of what we do with these things. Okay? In our first video with the Emperor, all those many months ago, we talked about the Emperor and what he does or doesn't do with his sons in terms of, in the setting. And we came to the conclusion that the Chaos Gods spreading his sons across the galaxy when they were infants in their pods was a bit silly and a bit, Deus Ex Machina. So we dialed that back and said, no, the Emperor does it on purpose because there are certain worlds out there in the cosmos that he knows are either issues from Old Night or worlds that are really important to his rise to power, and that's why he sends his sons there to sort of lay the groundwork, to grow up on those worlds and unify them, because they're gene-coded to follow him, right? So he's solving problems, nipping him in the bud by sacrificing his sons and sending them over there, knowing full well they might die in the process, right? So, with that being said, why is Magnus sent to Prospero? Somebody had a really good idea before about the Necrons. Now, the Necrons have turned up in a few of these videos, but I think this is one case where, if we're keeping the ancient Egyptian aesthetic of the Thousand Sons, perhaps this should be a tomb world. Perhaps Prospero should be a tomb world, that he goes and fights the Necrons, or the insane Necrons that are on the tomb world. Maybe he does that, right? Mr. Awesome says, Prospero, before the Age of Strife, was a pilgrimage site for psychers across the galaxy. When the Age of Strife happens, it becomes a safe haven akin to Charles Xavier's school for mutants. That's cool. I think the Shikari says, I think the Rubric Marines should be something Magnus did in response to Prospero rather than trying to fix a gene seed issue. Okay. He was sent there to make sure they won't be an issue when the Emperor shows up. Yep. Without Magnus, Prospero would have had an infestation of those weird psychic things that I can't remember. The Enslavers. The Enslavers, yes. Mr. Gad, yes. The Enslavers. Hi, Board. How's it going, man? Yeah, the Enslavers. Matthias, brilliant, mate. Yeah, so Matthias is really good at doing this, right? He's one of a few people on the stream who's really good at doing this. I'm... By the way, this is why I love teaching, is this back and forth, because all I do is I posit an idea. I put it out there, right? Here's an idea. And somebody like Matthias, or Matthias, takes it and warps it and changes it a little bit so it slots in to our fiction a lot better, in a much nicer way. And he says, an enormous ancient alien Necron library, traditional, not high-tech, is found on the world. Yes. So, the Emperor, I think that's a really good one. The Emperor knows there is a wealth of knowledge about old technology, Xenos tech, and also there is maybe it is naturally a gifted in the warp is Prospero, right? It is the walls between the warp and reality are very thin here, right? Very thin. This is what Prospero is. So maybe we go with that. One sec. I need to put my mic down and type this. So start a poll. Prospero has ancient Necron library full of knowledge and is touched by the warp. How's that? How's that? I think that's a good place to start. A very good place to start with Prospero. I think that'll be the last time we use the Necrons. In all honesty, that'll be the last time I want to use the Necrons. I don't really want to use them anymore. We've used them a few times now. We've just used the Necrons quite a few times, and I think it's time to retire them. To be fair, I think we've used them twice, right? Like this including this one, so it's not too bad. Big Jay-Z says, maybe the Emperor thinks it's a library of ancient tech, but it ends up being warp knowledge, which is the beginning of Magnus getting too deep in the warp. Mate, yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yes. That is a really good idea. Really good idea. So the Emperor thinks it's ancient technology, but it's actually... we could even say that the Necrons on this tomb world were meant to safeguard this knowledge, but the walls between the warp and reality are bending here. And it kind of drives the Necrons kind of batshit crazy, right? They go a bit crazy. That'd be really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's a good idea. That is a more elegant start to his journey, anyway, as far as I'm concerned. A far more elegant start to it than, you know, it's just a place where there's lots of sorcerers. Well, why? Why is it a place with lots of sorcerers? What is the reason for this being a place with lots of sorcerers? You know, that kind of a thing. Okay, we'll end the poll there. So that goes through. Wonderful. All right. So, what do we do with Magnus during the Great Crusade? We know he is friends with Leman Russ. We made that change last time. Does anybody remember how friendly he was with Leman Russ? I'm pretty certain they were very, very, very close, right? It's almost like a Mecca for psychers. Yeah, it is. It is. It should be. Anyway, let me just see if I've got a note from the Leman Russ video. It'll be way back in the day now, but it might still be there. I'm not seeing it right now. Well, feel free to jump in. And let me know what you come up with. Well, what you've seen. Let me have a little look around. You know, like so. I've got Fulgrim here. I've got White Scars. So it'll be after that. No, I don't think there's a. Okay. Never mind. So I can't really remember what we did with in terms of their relationship. I'm looking to get to the nitty gritty of it because I know Leman Russ and Magnus were pretty close. So I'm gonna go along that logic, right? Magnus's true nature, because Leman Russ can see people's true natures. It's one of his things, right? You can see through to what people actually are, and the veracity with which Magnus wants to learn is something that Leman Russ likes and jives with. He gets along with that kind of a thing, right? He's always wanting to get better. He's always wanting to learn and ingest new things. And Leman Russ likes that, right? So maybe, I think it'd be really cool if Leman Russ is the one to discover Magnus on Prospero. That would be cool, right? And they feast and they do, they write poetry, do all that kind of fun stuff, right? Because Leman Russ can do that, He's a warrior scholar, he can do that. So they feast each other, they arm wrestle, and Leman Russ kind of takes him under his wing. He's like, oh, this is my little brother, right? This is my little guy. He's my little brother, right? Leman Russ takes the adage of the older brother to Magnus, Magnus is taller than Leman Russ, obviously, but, yeah. Maybe, Board says, maybe Magnus becomes obsessed with Necron knowledge and goes hunting tomb worlds during the Great Crusade. That's cool, excellent, yeah, I like that, Board, yeah. Maybe this was actually the centre of a Necron dynasty over here. And so, the first few, shall we say, conflicts that, they're like Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Yes, they are, indeed. So we have Leman Russ and Magnus heading out into the wider sector away from Prospero, and they're conquering this area of space. And we have, basically, it's an insane Necron dynasty that has reawoken way too soon, 10,000 years too soon, right? And they're wandering around, and this is the war that they go on. But of course, Leman Russ notices something that maybe he doesn't like in Magnus, and that is this guy, unfortunately, is a little too enamored with Necron knowledge. He's like he needs it, like he wants it, like he wants to learn the very secrets of the fabric of the universe and the galaxy. He's determined. So when he meets the Emperor, he can do so because the Emperor and Magnus have been talking in their sleep, right? They're both psychers, very, very powerful psychers. They've met each other in the warp a few times, right? And it's kind of like, Imagine having a girlfriend who you've only spoken to online and on the phone, then you're going to meet in person for the first time, right? That kind of similar feeling. He's like, well, I want to make sure that he knows I'm like a really cool guy, and that I can do this, I can do all these things, right? I guess he would be buddies with Melchior too. Yes. Our 11th Legion, Primarch, he would indeed. Hikari says, it's kind of like the 80s trope of the nerd and the jock duo. Yes, it is. Exactly that. We want all of the Breakfast Club vibes between Leman, Russ, and Magnus. Yeah. Absolutely. So, let's do it that way, right? Put it to a vote. I will put it to a vote, as I always do. So we'll go Leman, Russ, and Magnus. Very close brothers. Leman acts as older mentor and brother. There we go. That's what we're going with. So these two are thick as thieves. Absolutely thick as thieves. Sounds like Magnus is desperate for the approval of his father and brothers. He is. As any nerd would be. Any nerd surrounded by Giga Chads like Leman Russ and like, Rogul Dawn is going to be like, well, what do I do? Right? Maybe we can even have Magnus not being that great at fighting. Right? He's the most powerful Primarch, weirdly, because he can just throw buildings at you till you die. But at the same time, he doesn't duel, right? He doesn't see the point in dueling. He kind of looks at like Leman Russ's way of fighting as kind of beneath him. He's like, well, what do I need an axe for? I can control the tides of the universe. What do I need an axe for? Big Jay-Z says, like Anakin and Obi-Wan, Magnus even falls in the search for more power. Yeah, he's looking for more power. He wants to be on par with his more established and traditional general-like brothers. Absolutely. Matthias says, the rubric was an early take on biotransference, but the Necrons knew it was flawed and abandoned it. When the RWAS found... When the what was found? The flaws and abandonment were not mentioned. Okay. I like that. That gives a meaning for the rubric being a thing. That's actually really good idea. Yeah. Maybe the spell of biotransference is what the rubric was. That's a very good idea. Yes. Absolutely. If we're playing into that trope, Magnus should be desperate for his ancient knowledge because it equalises him with Russ in terms of strength. Yes, indeed. Luckily, when I Like Dogs 2 holds up Dashhunt. Alright. So, how successful at conquering are we making 1,000 Suns? Alright. So, one thing's first. Are we keeping the flesh change? We need to know that. I think we probably do. I think we probably do need to keep it. Because we need a reason for this biotransference issue to happen, right? Absolutely. I think we need it to happen. Mr. Grad said, when people are insecure about something, they tend to overcompensate, and people can view that as arrogance. Leman Russ sees through this, but the rest of his brothers do not. Yeah, and that could be a reason why he's so estranged from everybody else, right? Yeah. I always found it really weird how Lorgar and Magnus are quite pally in the actual Horus Heresy. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. There's such a thing as being too similar and not being able to see the wood for the trees. Do you know what I mean? Or the forest for the trees. I think Lorgar and Magnus would absolutely despise each other. They're too similar, but in different ways, if you know what I'm saying. I've known people, I've been like that with people in the past. I've known people that I've really disliked and have really disliked me because we've been too similar, but in different ways. You know what I mean? We're very similar people, but we've gone in different directions in life. That's Lorgar and Magnus. They shouldn't be pally. You know what I mean? The only reason Leman Russ really likes Magnus because he sees through it. He knows why Magnus acts this way. He knows why he's desperate for approval. He knows why he goes above and beyond looking for ancient knowledge because he wants to better himself and be at one with his brothers. And he's the one who sees through it to the damaged person within and his kindred spirit. He's like, yeah, I get this guy, right? Hikari says, if we keep the flesh change, Magnus should originally be okay with giving up psychic powers, but after the Legion falls behind in the Crusade, he goes back and does the rubric. Okay. Maybe we can use the rubric, says Mr. Awesome, as a failed attempt from Magnus to make his sons more powerful. Yes, it is a good tragic flaw. Okay, alright. Okay. If you're voting against, I noticed there is there's 33% people voting against keeping the flesh change. If you're voting against, you need to give us a reason why. That's only fair. So I would vote to keep it. You know? If Magnus does the rubric, are we writing Ahriman out of the Exile verse? No. No. Ahriman will do something else. If the flesh change is still a thing, Ahriman will do something else. We'll give Ahriman something else to do. Big Jay-Z says, he was always the strongest on Prospero, but now he isn't. He wants that feeling back. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Right. Brilliant. Okay, so we're keeping the flesh change. We know that. We're keeping the flesh change now. So, in terms of the flesh change, I have an idea. And I think somebody hit on it before. Hikari hit on this. It was Hikari who hit on this. So I'm going to say he, but it could be he or a she, but I'm going to say he. So maybe the strength and the wherewithal of the Thousand Sons in breaking out and going and surging out into the galaxy, conquering worlds, maybe that gets slowed, right? Because quite naturally, Tzeentch starts taking an interest in Magnus and his Legion and starts playing with them a little bit, right? Starts twisting them and changing them. They start mutating. Things start going poorly. And as his Legion starts to break down, his conquest rate slows to a crawl to where basically the word bearers and Thousand Sons are seen as like the poor children of the Legions. And whilst Lorgar doesn't really give a shit about that, you know, because he's there for the God Emperor, whatever, Magnus, it kills him inside, right? And that is when he and Ahriman, right, start to figure out a way to do biotransference. But it's Ahriman who comes to Magnus with the idea because Ahriman wants to bring his twin brother back, right? He's still got his soul out there. He wants to biotransfer his brother's soul into something else, right? Into new flesh. New things. How about that? So we start doing the rubric. We start literally doing the rubric, and then bang! Just as the rubric's becoming a thing. Not only a thing, right? Let's do it this way. Let's make it a tragic mistake. So, Magnus starts producing Space Marines, right? He starts producing Space Marines, and I don't mean not like normal. No. He gets gene crafters and flesh crafters to create Space Marines, blank slates, just bodies. That's all he gets is bodies. And he's saying, right, I'm going to transfer the souls of my men into these new bodies, and we're going to be all right. These are not corrupted. These are, you know, absolutely great. Yeah, we're going to be just fine here. We're going to be, you know, everything's going to be cool. He does it a few times to practice, and it works. Right? It literally works. He transfers one or two people, maybe even Ahriman, right, to a brand new body, And he's fine. They're all fine. And he's like, right, I can do this for my entire legion. This is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. And then the council at Nicaea happens. And psychic tampering with legions is outlawed. Mainly for this reason. Everybody's very nervous that Magnus is creating new Space Marines. They think that he wants to grow his legion beyond everybody else because he wants to, catch up and things, which is kind of true. Right? So Nicaea happens, and of course, the Emperor decides no more Psychers in legions. That's it now. We're not doing Psychers in legions, right? Primaris Marines. Maybe. Maybe this is how we're nudging Primaris Marines into being, but I would say this is what we're gonna do with the Primaris Marine idea, but we're not going to do Primaris Marines in the Exileverse. I think when we get to 40k Exileverse, it'll be an armor upgrade and that's it. We're not going to do, there's 10,000, there's 150,000 Marines somewhere. No, we're not doing that, right? It's on a very low scale, and it takes Magnus ages to do it. But he does eventually biotransfer a few souls into new bodies. And he's like, I'm going to mass produce this, it's going to be awesome, right? Then Nicaea happens. And that forces him down a road of, well, shit, I've got to hurry this up, right? And that's when mistakes start creeping in. That's when all the mistakes start creeping in. So, one of the other things I wanted to talk about, Perhaps, Monton says, perhaps there's no Primaris Marines precisely because of what Magnus did. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to do, yeah. Mr. Gadd says, just a thought, maybe they only become the 1,000 Sons after the rubric because they have a different name. That's cool, yes, okay, right. Here's a thing, right? Maybe they have a different name, right? They have a different name. Let's call them the Librarians for now. Silly name, I know. But let's call 1,000 Sons the Librarians. And maybe he only gets to do this biotransference with 1,000 souls at the start. He can only do it 1,000. He did 1,000 and they were all turned out fine. And he named his entire legion the 1,000 Sons. As a rebirth, as a new thing. Look, we're all going to do this. It's all going to be fine. Then Nicaea happens and shuts everything down. And means that Magnus has to rush. And when he's rushing, he's making mistakes. How's that? Right? He's making mistakes. So, now, does anybody remember how we get from here to Leman Russ attacking Prospero? Does anybody remember? If you need to go back on the previous stream and have a little flick through, feel free. I can't because I'm on stream, and so you'll be hearing me twice, and it'll be really confusing for you. But does anybody remember why Leman Russ had to attack Prospero? Because they're pretty tight in this. Mr. Awesome says the Primarchs feared that he would become another Melchior issue. Yeah, that's one. Big Jay-Z, Magnus should know that Russ is coming to kill him. The rubric screws up when he tries to speed up the process and do everybody before the burning of Prospero, so they'll be ready for the wolves. Alright, yes. The Red Suns. The Crimson Suns. The Crimson Suns. The original name is the Crimson Suns. Changed it a little bit. Original Legion name. The Crimson Suns. Mr. Gadd says, if I remember right, wasn't it a false flag attack that shot Russ first? I can't remember. It's so long ago now. Remember, we're at Legion 15, right? Legion 15. My God. Yeah, Legion 15 now. So I can't remember. I cannot remember which is which. How we got to the point with maybe the experiments are getting out there, right? They're becoming more known. Yeah? They're becoming a lot more known. That could be a thing. Yeah, I think it was Horus doing the manipulations, yes. Yes, it was. Horus tricks Leman after Magnus said no to Horus, and he needed to be killed because he would be a threat. Right, okay. Brilliant. Okay, that's what we're doing. So, yes, so the Horus heresy is about to kick off, right? Horus goes to Magnus saying, let's do this. Let's get together, let's overthrow the Emperor. I'll let you do psychic stuff, right? Magnus tells him to go fuck himself, right? He said, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I am not doing that. You know, goes back to Prospero, starts to do his Legion again. To which point, Horus goes to Leman Russ and says, Magnus has to go. Magnus has to go. He's doing this to his Marines, and he shows Leman Russ, you know, the warped nature of the flesh change, and how he's like, you know, he's making more and more and more Marines using the Thousand Suns rubric, right? Yeah. Does Magnus still destroy the webway? I don't know. I don't think we got that far. Right? He's doing all these things with his Legion, and he says, listen, you need to go over there, and you need to bring him to heel. He needs to go. Right? He needs to go. He'll let you in, basically. He says to Leman Russ, he'll let you in. You need to go and reason with him, and if you can't reason with him, then he needs to go. This has gone far enough. This is a big, big danger to us, right? And Leman Russ, you know, he's been estranged from Magnus for a little while, right? He's not spoken to him in a long time. Misses his brother, goes back and tries to reason with him, right? Absolutely tries to reason with him. We then have the false flag attack. So he gets into Prospero, into the system, and is immediately attacked. He's immediately attacked by, you know, elements of the Thousand Suns Legion who don't want to go quietly, essentially. And that forces his landing on Prospero. Now, as I've said before, the burning of Prospero goes very poorly for the Space Wolves. Very poorly. They lose a lot of men. I'm talking, you know, a good 70% of the Legion is gone after Prospero, right? Yeah. We need to, okay, if we're remembering certain things from the Leman Russ stream, we need to give more context, because I don't know what that means. In terms of him destroying the webway. I don't know what that means. So, here's the thing. Leman Russ is heading down to Prospero, right? Heading down there to basically say, hey, stop this, you know? Right, okay, right, okay. Rewind. Okay. Leman Russ comes into the Prospero system, right? He's getting assaulted by demons, as Wanton says there. He's getting assaulted by demons, and he thinks, wow, Magnus has gone off the deep end here. These all Tzeentch demons, by the way, just climbing aboard his ship and murdering everybody. So he said, I've got to get to Prospero right now. I need to talk to Magnus. I need to talk to Magnus. Stop this madness, right? He goes to Prospero, and Magnus thinks, oh my god, Leman Russ is on his way, and he's going to kill me. So he absolutely screws up the rubric, right? And he creates the rubric marines by accident. Most of his legion are now basically automatons, right? He does it by accident. And he's furious. And do you know who he blames? Not himself. He blames Leman Russ. So if you didn't force my hand, I wouldn't have made this mistake. You know? So when Leman Russ lands on Prospero, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose. Everybody's fighting everybody, essentially. And because one legion doesn't just wipe the floor with another, the Space Wolves lose a good 70% of their numbers, either to battlefield casualties or the rampant flesh change that Magnus infects the Space Wolves with. He infects the Space Wolves with the flesh change, and it changes them into mostly werewolf monstrosities. Yeah? Seeing this, though, Magnus and Leman Russ cross blades. You know, they duel. And Leman Russ lets him know. He says to Magnus, I never came here to kill you. I came here to find out the truth of who you were, and now I know. Right? You're a traitor. I was attacked by demons as soon as I got here. I know you're a traitor now. Right? I came here to talk, and you responded by doing this to my legion. There is no mercy now. Right? Magnus realizes something's gone completely wrong here, and he didn't have faith in his own brother. And he kind of lets his guard down. And that's when Leman Russ, with a heavy heart, brings the blade down and kills him, right? Because he did die in the other one as well. So it's a tragic death for Magnus. Very, very, very tragic. So Matthias says he uses the webway to save the remainder of his men and collapses it so they can't be followed. It was never his intention to collapse the whole thing. Okay, cool. 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 Alright. Well, let's fold that in there as well. Mr. Awesome says, it was a failed attempt to contact the Emperor like in canon. Okay, so we can do that as well. We can fold that in as well. So when Horus fails to convince Magnus to come over to his side, Magnus sends a message to the Emperor. It destroys the webway portal, essentially, right? Ruining his project. And that's why Leman Russ is sent over. And of course, Horus says, we need to get rid of this guy. It's going way too far, right? Cool. And maybe, those 1,000 Suns? The original 1,000 Suns? Maybe they're still alive, and they're led by Ahriman into that webway portal on Prospero before he destroys it. Right? So the 1,000 Suns are literally 1,000 Suns. They're the 1,000 perfect. They're free of the flesh change. They're super well trained. They're the best psychers in the galaxy, and they're the last of the 1,000 Suns that are alive. Everyone else is basically listless rubric marines. Okay, so Magnus is now dead, and the Space Wolves are basically out of the Horus Heresy. They're basically done. Right? They can't do very much. Magnus, my research could have saved your sons as well, but you came to kill me on my own instead. And exactly. So the 1,000 Suns are basically lost in the webway. These 1,000 perfect, Marines, Psyker Marines, are lost in the webway. And you know what they could do? These dudes, they could turn up throughout the galaxy, and you know what they do? They hunt the Rubric Marines, not to kill them, but to they're like sheepdogs. They go and get the sheep, right? They go and bring them, Rubric, come here, right? Come here, right? And they look after their brothers. They go and get them. That's their main thing, and it's still Ahriman's quest to finish biotransference, to do it. Ahriman is not obsessed with the Eldar. He's obsessed with the Necrons. He goes to Necron tomb worlds and tries to ravage them for technology and knowledge to try and make sure that one day the Rubric Marines he's collected can be biotransferred into new bodies. To finish the work that Magnus started. And I guess that is the 1,000 Suns. And this is what I've always said, is that this process should get shorter. And the 1,000 Suns are a real beautiful example of that. The whole process has become so much shorter. Because all we've got to do now is take what we did earlier and add a few bits, shave down a few other bits so it all fits in nicely together, and there we are, the 1,000 Suns. The 1,000 Suns are literally now 1,000 Suns. There are 1,000 Marines. Perfect librarians. Each Marine is a librarian. Each Marine is an ultra-powerful alpha-level psyker, right? Maybe the 1,000 Suns are able to calm the warp storms enough for the Ultramarines to make it to Terra. That would be cool, Mr. Gad. Why not? Why can't we have them coming back and directing, yeah, and literally making a thing? Yeah. Let's have them redeem themselves by doing that. They're the ones who calm the Ruin Storm. Yeah. Yeah, because they're not actually traitors, right? They're renegades at this point. Don't get me wrong, after 10,000 years, Araman's a salty bitch. You know what I mean? He's salty. He's not a good guy, but he's not a traitor, right? But he does fight everybody. He's a renegade. Everybody hates him, and he fights everybody to protect his men, right? Protect his guys. But each loss of the 1,000 Suns is huge. You know? Each exalted sorcerer of the 1,000 Suns that has lost, there's only 1,000 of them, is a huge blow, right? Some of them go renegade, some of them go on their own, right? So, again, let's recap. So, Magnus is sent to Prospero because there is an ancient Necron library there with a lot of knowledge on there. The Emperor thinks it's technology, but it's not. It's all about biotransference and basically warp stuff. It's the Necrons trying to research ways to combat the warp. Essentially, that's what it's all about. Prospero is very unstable because it's basically a part of a warp rift, right? There's the lines between the warp and the real world are very slim there. Magnus goes there and becomes the Crimson King of this world. Leman Russ is the Primarch to find him, and it becomes like a older brother figure. So we've got a jock nerd dynamic going on between them. And Leman Russ is the only one to see through to Magnus's true nature. He sees that, yeah, this is a guy who wants the approval of everybody, and that's why he comes across as quite aloof and try-hard when he wants all of this knowledge and stuff. But they become very close, and they annihilate the Necron dynasty, the insane one that awoke too early, that took over the part of space that Prospero was part of, right? Eventually, they drift apart. They go their own separate ways, and Magnus goes conquering on his own. But the flesh change starts to happen to his legion. Tzeentch starts toying with his legion, trying to pull him over to his side. And in response to this, he delves into his Necron archives and he finds the rite of biotransference, to the way to take a soul into one body and put it into another, even a construct, right? So he tries to make it so that he can give empty flesh a new soul. So he starts cloning Marines. He starts cloning his own Marines, right? But he can only do it very slowly. I'm talking over the century or two that the Great Crusade is going on. For a full century, he's doing like maybe 10 a year, right? Maybe. 10 to 20 Marines a year he can do. But this also slows his crusade down to a crawl, which he hates with a passion. Eventually it speeds up though, as he starts to mend. He can give up one of his eyes to slow down the flesh change. I don't mind that. That means the 1,000 Suns can get conquering again, which they do. And he creates 1,000 perfect Marines through biotransference. Araman is one of them, right? And they are not touched by the flesh change. They're completely not corruptible by Tzeentch. Everything's going well. Then the Council of Nicaea happens, and the Emperor outlaws psychic shenanigans in his legions. One of the reasons for that is because he's heard of what Magnus is doing, and he doesn't like it, right? So he's like, no, you shouldn't be creating your own Marines. Stop that, basically, right? A little while later, Horus comes to Magnus and tries to sway him over to his side, and says, no, you can come with me. We will find a flesh change cure, and you can do all the psychic powers that you want. Magnus, being loyal, says, no, I'm not doing that, right? He goes home to Prospero and breaks. He sends a message to the Emperor that breaks the webway gate on Terra. So, shit is hitting the fan. And from here, things work out very similar to what they do in the real setting, with the Emperor sending Leman Russ to go and parley and reason with Magnus, because he's the closest brother to him. But they're quite estranged at this point. Maybe we even have Leman Russ in the Council of Nicaea speaking against psychic powers reluctantly, because he's got to tell the truth, right? And his truth is, Magnus, mate, you're going too far with this, right? So the brothers have been quite estranged for a while now, tragically. Horus gets a hold of Leman Russ and says, listen, I've got reports of demons and all sorts happening around Prospero. Be prepared for a fight. Be prepared for a fight. It's going to hit the fan, right? Be very prepared. Leman Russ goes there with that in mind, and Tzeentch demons start attacking him. Not sent by Magnus, but Tzeentch demons start attacking him. He then attacks Prospero, thinking, what in the hell is going on, right? In the meantime, Magnus is panicking and enacts the rubric, but does it too soon. He tries to do it with the full legion, rather than just, slowly but surely. And it turns most of his legion into the rubric marines, seals them in their armour, annihilates their flesh, and that's what they are now. And he goes mad with despair and grief. And so when the Space Wolves land, he goes at them, right? And the Thousand Sons, the newly christened Thousand Sons Legion, annihilate a good 70% of the Space Wolves Legion, right? Because they're fighting a defensive war, they know all the terrain, they all know the pitfalls and the traps, they've got psychic powers, and them mutating the natural unstable gene seed of the Space Wolves. It's a shit time for the Space Wolves, right? The Space Wolves do win. They win the battle, but they lose a good 70% of their Marines in the process. Leman Russ is physically and mentally scarred. He has to kill his brother at the end of the day, because he reveals to Magnus whilst they're fighting, I didn't come here to kill you. I came here at Father's behest to take you home, so you could talk, right? All of this could have been avoided if you'd have just realised for 5 seconds that you're not the smartest person in the room. Always. Knowing that he's now been duped, Magnus doesn't let Leman Russ kill him, but he stops fighting with such verve and anger, and he starts focusing on getting his 1,000 perfect sons out of there, right? So he gets them, and Magnus even has the choice: do I save my own life by defending myself against Leman Russ, or do I lower my weapon and rip a hole in reality into the webway to send my 1,000 sons in there to save them? And he chooses to save his sons, Ahriman and the rest. So 1,000 perfect sons go into the webway, and Magnus is struck down. Maybe we have Magnus's death be the catalyst for Prospero actually being destroyed. So it's actually destroyed and ripped into the warp, right? Leman Russ barely gets out of there. Parts of it are ripped straight into the warp, and that scatters the 1,000 Sons across the galaxy. Literally the rubric marines are now across the galaxy, scattered. Ahriman is in the webway with his 1,000 marines, perfect librarian marines, extremely powerful, and is wandering around, across space and time, trying to find his rubric marines, trying to bring them to him, to try and replace Magnus, try and say, look, I can fix this, right? He attacks load of tomb worlds across the galaxy, looking for knowledge, looking for what he needs to do to save his men, and that's what he does. Right, and that is the 1,000 Sons story. Recapped. That's what we've done. And I'd call them complete. Board says, are the Grey Knights still a thing in the Exileverse? They are, but we've not touched on them yet. We will do, though. Does Magnus still know Horus has turned, and does he try to warn the Emperor? He did. He did know Magnus. The whole catalyst for this was him finding out that Horus has turned and trying to warn the Emperor. So the Rubric Marines are defending Prospero. They were, until Prospero was destroyed. Yes. They were. Now they're across space and time. There could be a few of them in Chaos Warbands here and there. Wouldn't it be really cool if whenever Ahriman or one of the 1,000 Sons turns up, the Rubric Marines instantly they abandon whatever they're doing and go to fight alongside them, because they're like the gene sires, Maybe Magnus's research is used to make the Grey Knights. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant idea. We'll keep a load of that. I'm going to have to go pretty soon, guys, because I'm already running out over time. But that is the 1,000 Sons complete. We have done the 1,000 Sons. So I'm very, very, very happy with that. I think these should get shorter and shorter and shorter. One thing I can say is next week we will be doing a longer stream because I'm keeping Sunday free. Let me see, who is it next week? It might be... I think it's the big boy next week. I think it's Horace. I think it's Horace next week. It is. It's Sons of Horus. It's Lunar Wolves. It's Horus Lupercal next week. So that's going to be a 2-3 hour stream easily. So I will see you then for that. Tomorrow's Hobby Nightmares are on the way. They should be with you relatively soon. I think the Hobby Nightmare is... let me have a look. See, here we go. That is tomorrow's Hobby Nightmare. 40k casuals can be worse than Sweat Lords. That will be tomorrow at 6:15, the usual time. All right, I'll speak to you then, and I will see you all very, very, very soon. And yeah, I'm going to go do some family stuff now, but be well. I'll speak to you soon, all right? I'll speak to you next week. We're going to be doing the Sons of Horus. Wow, that's not going to be controversial at all. All right, love you a long time. Speak to you soon. Bye.